Buried, a Wild West American town that has ended up underground due to mysterious circumstances. It does not sound safe to me whatsoever. So of course, we've got to go and check it out and see how safe this map actually is. Welcome to the Safety Check. Here we have it, the one, the only Buried. Now I have gone down the slippy slide already. We'll go back to spawn in a bit, don't you worry. But I think we should just start off with the low tier risks first before we do anything else. Now the first one I want to mention is going to be tripping hazards. Now on this map, there is probably the most amount of tripping hazards I have ever seen. You have wheels on the floor, you have planks of wood. Hello boy, how you doing? More planks of wood just all over the floor, and that's just in the first area. I mean, it keeps on getting worse. Like, look at all this debris and rubble just everywhere inside the house as well, and it just gets more and more worse. I mean, you definitely trip over these rocks, and look at the state of inside here. If you don't think there's a tripping hazard in here, then you are blind. And it doesn't get any better the further along we go. I mean, look at the state of this place. Everywhere is just covered in tripping hazards. And for that reason, it's actually going to get quite a low ranking for this map. It's actually going to get a 50 out of 100. Now, next we're going to go with the hygiene of this map. Now, of course, this is all underground. So there's going to be a lot of dust kicking up everywhere, which obviously you won't see much of in terms of like visibility on the map, but we do have to take that into consideration, especially when there's a whole shop of sweets and food that we could consume here to, survive, that could be covered in these dust particles. And it's all open as well. All of these will be covered and potentially infected now, which isn't good. And if we come into our other area that has consumables like liquor, again, it just doesn't look hygienic whatsoever, does it? It is horrible. And actually, when I'm standing still, you can actually see all the dust particles in the air. Yeah, that's how bad it is. And on top of that, look, we've got flies everywhere all around the bar, which would suggest that it is dirty. And when you look at where our friend was staying, I mean, does this scream hygienic to you? Look at all these plates that are dirty. I mean, he's literally sleeping on a pile of rubble. It ain't great. So hygiene is definitely going to have to go on the list here, and it's actually going to get a 60 out of 100. Now the next low tier risk is actually going to be shrapnel. As you can see here, there is lots of glass just all over the floor, which we could definitely hurt ourselves on. There's also more glass on the floor above the sweet shop, which is again not going to be good for us. And last but not least, this smashed window has caused more glass to scatter all across the floor. So it is not looking good. And for that reason, it is going to get a 70 out of 100. Okay, so for this next part, we are actually going to have to go back to the spawn. So we are just going to take a little trip down this well. Here we are. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was the weather elements. I mean, as you can tell, like, look at the state of the weather here. That is kicking up a massive, massive dust cloud, which doesn't look good. The last thing we want is to be caught in a massive cloud of dust, aka a dust storm, So yeah, weather elements is definitely going to have to be a risk on this map, and it is going to get a 60 out of 100. Now from that, we can move on to our medium tier risks, and the first medium tier risk I'm going to talk about actually relates to our one way back into the map, which is of course to fall down this hole. Yes, it's falling. And another thing in the spawn, as you can see, there is a massive, massive crater here, which is ridiculously huge. I don't know how they made that, but if you fell down that, that's your definite death. And I can imagine sliding down this, I'd also break some bones, but we'll ignore that for a minute as we fall down more and we fall down more. And then if we're going around the map, we could fall down some more. And it seems to be a running theme throughout this map in general, because, anywhere you go, you can basically fall. I mean, I could just come out this door and I can fall. I mean, it's not a big fall, but it's still a fall. And then, of course, before I turn this into a lovely whirlpool, we could fall down here and die. And, of course, we have this lovely little area here by the pack-a-punch, where there's a hole in the stairs where you can fall down. Okay, that one's not too bad, sure. But then, of course, you can fall down here and die because, that doesn't look like it ever ends. So falling is definitely a hazard in this map, and it's quite a prevalent one. So I'm actually going to give it a 30 out of 100. Moving on from falling, we can move on to our next issue on this map. And it, of course, is going to be the building stability. Now, this is an old western town that has somehow ended up underground in this cave. And because of that, you can see the structures of all these buildings have taken a battering. I mean, half of them don't even fit. Look at this. This is like literally jammed in here. And it doesn't fill me with confidence because look at the state of the buildings after it's been teleported here. I mean, I fell down there. Like I said a second ago, this one has literally become part of the cave. And there's cracks all over the roof because of it. Some of it started falling apart. And overall, all of the buildings are just taking a battering. I mean, look at that one there. Obviously, it's left massive gaps in the structure here. This one's literally tilted and is half broken. And all the structure for this one is completely shafted as well. I mean, look at the state of this bank or court or whatever it is. It's not good. And of course, we've got the church, which looks like it's seen better days all around. And that, of course, is to not forget that we are inside a cave. This could break down on us at any point, which it looks like it has because look at the size of these boulders that are falling on the floor. So yeah, building stability is definitely a big risk. And for that reason, it's actually going to get a 20 out of 100. Okay, moving on, we need to actually do another little trip back up to the top because our next factor that we have to take into consideration is the machinery. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how old all of this is, but I can't imagine it's very new looking at the state of it and the fact that the world has been in an apocalyptic state for a little while. Now, of course, you have all this other machinery in the distance as well, which I don't think I can actually get to show you now. But we all know what it looks like. All this machinery over this side of the map over there. It looks ancient. And I mean, it's still depositing rocks down there somehow, but I don't trust it. And I definitely have to say that it is a risk. And for that reason, it is going to get a 50 out of 100. Now, we can move on to our high tier risks. And the first one I want to mention is the chances of being crushed. Now, we mentioned that we are in a cave, and as I mentioned, there are holes already in this cave. And as I also mentioned a second ago when we were talking about building stability of the cave, big boulders have fallen down into the cave, like this one and this one here. So if any further stability issues happen, we could get absolutely crushed just like this wagon did and, you know, die. So being crushed is a massive risk on this map, as I show you more and more rocks that have just fallen from the ceiling and collapsed on top of us. So yeah, being crushed is going to get a 5 out of 100. And we also have one more high tier risk, and it's a chance of being impaled. There are a lot of these fences up that have sharp, pointy steel edges on the top, just like all of these here. You could definitely fall on those. And these are in plenty areas of the map, like there I mentioned, and they're also here. And of course, all these bits of wood that are sticking out that are quite sharp could also be a risk, which I wouldn't like to fall on. So yeah, I'd say impaling is a risk, but not as bad as being crushed. So it is going to get a 30 out of 100. So that is all of the high tier risks done. And now we can move on to the miscellaneous tier risks of the map. And we have two that I could see. The first one, you guessed it, is this lovely witch house that we have to run through. Now, when you walk up to it, you already get the horror vibes of the witches speaking to you, which isn't great. We can survive that, that's fine. But what is risky are all these goddamn witches that chase you and hunt you down when you're in the house. Now, I know they steal your points, which is no biggie, but they also like to hurt you, which I am not a big fan of. And these things will not leave you alone until you escape this witch house, which we all know can be a massive annoyance when we're playing. So the witches are definitely a risk because they will try to kill you. And for that reason, they are getting a 50 out of 100. Solely because they are stuck to the house and won't really bother you anywhere else on the map. Now, having gone through the witch's house, takes us on to our last miscellaneous tier risk, which is the maze itself. Now, most times, mazes are fun. We enjoy a maze, but not this one. We all know this one changes quite frequently when you are trying to run through it. Now, it seems that every time I finally memorize which way to go in the maze, it then ends up changing and I am stuck in here further. And if it just changes this frequently, what's stopping it from changing more often while you're in the maze? You could get stuck here for an eternity and you won't survive that. How are you going to survive, huh? You could say, oh, I'll jump in this and then that'll get me back up to the top at least. Well, what if it traps you and you can't get to this section? What are you going to do then, huh? Exactly. So the maze could definitely be a risk, and for that reason, it is going to get a 50 out of 100. But with that said and done, that does conclude all the risks for this map. Now, I did try to go through some safety features, but I couldn't actually see any. So we're just going to go on to a quick recap of the risks that we identified. And the risks we found were weather elements with a rating of 60, hygiene with a rating of 60, tripping hazards with a rating of 50, shrapnel with a rating of 70, falling with a rating of 30, building stability with a rating of 20, machinery with a rating of 50, being crushed with a rating of 5, impaling with a rating of 30, the maze with a rating of 50, and the witch's house with a rating of 50. Now, of course, we put all of those scores together and we get an average of 43 out of 100. But we do have more than 10 risks, which does give it a -5. So when you take that into consideration, Buried overall gets a total rating of 38 out of 100. Not a great score, but in terms of Black Ops 2 maps, actually not that bad, surprisingly. As you can see, it is still in the shut it down section, but it actually goes to the top of the pile in the shut it down section. So, you know, there's silver linings, I guess, for the map, but it's still not good whatsoever. But hey, that's why we do this. Now, of course, having completed Buried, that means we have one map left to conclude Black Ops 2, and that is none other than Origins. I know for certain that that map is not going to be safe, but we are going to find out soon. Now, of course, if you do want to see me rank Origins on its safety features, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because it will be coming alongside plenty of other COD Zombies content. And on a final note, I just want to say thank you to the members of the channel. The extra support is greatly appreciated as always. And if you do want to become a member, then why not join today? Apart from that, I hope you have all enjoyed today's episode of Safety Check. Make sure to subscribe if you want more. And until next time, stay safe.